Alright, hey there everybody, how's it going? It is Dragos and welcome back to another Pokemon fan art video. This time I am drawing my Sinnoh Champion Team, and we're starting off again with our starter, which, funny thing, it actually took me a couple poses, attempts to get right, mainly because of the head and the scaling, and then also trying to figure out, oh yeah, how do I want him to be positioned with his attack and everything. Eventually, though, I got it down pat, and my starter was actually a Turtwig in this generation. And I believe I had Pokemon Pearl. I did call the Turtwig Twiggy. Yeah, this was back when the naming still wasn't the best. But anyway, it was quite a surprisingly good Pokemon to have on my team. And I'm trying to remember, Twiggy I did spam a lot during any gym that I could with him, because he was a bit more of a tanky starter than say Empoleon or Prinplup. Oh, not Empoleon, like Piplup's evolutionary line or Chimchar's evolutionary line. Again, I don't really choose the fire type starters. It's mainly either the water or the grass type, like whatever one I think looks better. The only time I've ever chosen a fire type, like what you saw, was Gen 2. Any other time, it's either the water type or the grass type. But anyway, talking about Twiggy. So Twiggy was actually one that I kind of used a lot more grass and rock type moves with. And I believe he was... I didn't ever get him up to level 100 because I played a fair bit of Pokemon Pearl, but I never got any of my Pokemon up to level 100 because... Oh, that's right. I remember why now, because that was the game where I started realizing, oh, I can breed Pokemon and get cool Pokemon using the breeding mechanics with cool move sets. So that's actually the generation that I started doing Pokemon breeding a lot in, and I have kind of become a Pokemon breeder when I finished the champion battle. But yeah, anyway, so Twiggy being my starter was one that I spammed as much as humanly possible, and yes, I am wearing a singlet in this video. That's only because it is pretty much it is pretty damn close to summer here, and so it is way too hot half the time, and this was recorded at night and I was still way too hot just because of how my flat is, I should say. Yeah, that's kind of how the flat is. Yeah. But anyway, focusing on Pokemon, not me. I decided to draw him using Energy Ball, which was a move that I had him use quite a bit. Was it Energy Ball I decided? I can't remember if it was Energy Ball or Solar Beam. Either way, I used both of those moves a hell of a lot. Because, grass type using grass type moves, logic. Back when this was again, it still wasn't the best of naming time, so I was still figuring things out, figuring out how to do certain things. But surprisingly enough, I had pretty much every single color that I needed to actually draw him in an accurate color scheme, which is very surprising with some of these later generation ones. It's almost completely accurate, but it's not entirely accurate. It's that odd area in between. And of course, you got to add a bit of lighting effects, and you'll see up ahead. There it is. Yeah, there's the lighting effects. Oh, makes it look good. But yeah, Twiggy was one that I remember using a lot, and he was actually kind of the one that helped me catch most of the Pokemon that I got in Pearl. But anyway, again, you can tell this is on I think this is a different time or a different day, but... No, that was at a different time. Yeah, that's at a different day, because this is the point where I'm drawing it in the middle of the day, my second Pokemon, and this one took me even longer to get correct with the posing, because of just how it is. And the second Pokemon in my champion team was a Luxray, which I called Alpha, I believe. Yes, Alpha the Luxray, as in the alpha of the pack. And the funny thing is, it took me so long to get this Pokemon's position and sizing right, just because of how the head is in every piece of art I could find. I was just okay, I need a reference image of a Luxray. How am I going to do this? And then I found one. I was that's pretty cool. It works nicely. And eventually I got it right. But yeah, see there you go. I turned on the light because I was oh right, I have a light here. But anyway, Surge Luxray. Oh gosh, I remember using him a decent amount. It was actually the first Pokemon that I actively searched for because my brother had told me there was a lion cub like Pokemon, and lions are actually one of my favorite animals. So I was like, oh my god, I gotta find this thing, and I did find him, and I caught him. And I was like, ooh, it's an electric type. I love this even more. And then when it evolved into a Luxray, I'm just like, yo, this is badass. And I did actually call him Alpha as a Shinx because it was the highest level Shinx I'd run into without accidentally knocking it out. Yeah, it happened way too many times. But yeah, again, surprisingly, I had most of the colors to draw and color in a Luxray, and I was surprised and happy about that because, I do absolutely love this Pokemon, and it is a very cool Pokemon. Who cannot like Luxray because it is a badass electric lion. Like, what's not to love? And then again, I could probably look even cooler if it had some other things to it. But anyway, Surge, I believe... Yeah, I did use him a fair bit against the Elite Four. Most of his moves, I think I had him know Thunder and Thunder Shock, obviously. But I also taught him Dark type moves just because, badass looking lion. Why not? And of course, me being me, not realizing it's an electric type and I need to draw it using an electric type move, resulted in drawing me drawing the sparks of electricity around him. Not a good move on my part, not gonna lie. I need to start thinking about how I'm gonna position electric types a lot better. But anyway, moving on to the next Pokemon in our team, and oh well, what do you know? What did Sinnoh introduce? Glaceon and Leafeon. What did I have on my team? Glaceon, actually. Eventually, I did want to get a Leafeon, but I chose Glaceon first just because of the type coverage. This is actually when I started to think more about type coverage. The funny thing with Glaceon is, when it was coming down to it, like actually drawing it, it was a really weird one to get the perspective of the face, like to get it look right. And like at a point, I just, while drawing it, I was like, you know what? It's not entirely accurate, but as close as I'm going to get it. And again, me forgetting to draw an attack while I'm drawing it, I ended up drawing it using Ice Shard because I was like, you know what? It works. The tricky part was Glaceon is like a desaturated, but also a bit of a dark turquoise on it. And the tricky part was any sort of turquoise I had was super saturated, and same with any blue that would go on its that I put on its body. Like, I had to find the most desaturated but also the most accurate ones for each of those. And what I'm actually doing here is I'm using the colorless blender that comes attached to like each of the markers on chameleon markers to desaturate the turquoise even more, because trying to actually get this thing accurate was a pain in the butt. I did get it as close as humanly possible, like as close as humanly possible, and of course using the Glaceon was mostly towards the Elite Four because I wanted to train it up, obviously, and not many gyms really need an ice type before them. I did use him against the 8th gym and again in the Elite Four, but that's just how things go. On to the 4th Pokemon. Sorry, not the 4th. What am I talking about? The 4th Pokemon was the fossil Pokemon, and actually the only fossil Pokemon I think I've had on my champion team. Yeah, actually no, that is the only fossil Pokemon I ever had on a champion team. It was a Bastiodon who I called Fortress. Because, you see that face, you don't think, I was either Fortress or I called him Castle. No, it was Fortress because something else was called Castle later on. But anyway, he was a Pokemon that, again, for type coverage, I taught a lot of different moves. And Fire Fang was actually one that was really useful that I made him learn. And I do know it can learn Fire Fang because I double-checked. And I double-checked that I had my information accurate on the Pokemon database. And Fire Fang is a move learnable by Bastiodon. I had to make sure of that because I forgot. But anyway, Fortress was actually a really useful Pokemon. Like, after I figured out how I could get the fossil revived, I was like, oh, cool. I'll just go and do that. And then they're like, oh, you have a choice of these fossils. And I was like, ah, I have a choice. I obviously went with the Dome fossil because by this point I figured out that there was a website to check Pokemon info. And I was just like, ah, cool. And again, that website I'm talking about is cerebree.net. Like, I use it a lot when looking into things. But yeah, I looked them up, and I only looked up their first stages. And I went with Shieldon because I was like, oh my god, this thing is like cuter than. Actually, if you think about it, Cranidos is like a Pachycephalosaurus crossed with a Tyrannosaurus. A Pachycephalosaurus Rex. Anyway, it was a really useful Pokemon that I used a lot in later gyms, and it was only after I drew him where I drew him, I was like, oh, I buggered up the positioning. Like, even looking at it now, I'm just like, wow, I really buggered up that positioning. But again, it's not an overly big deal. It's not the end of the world. It's just something I noticed after I'd done it, so I couldn't go back and change it. But anyway, on to the fifth Pokemon, and the fifth Pokemon I had on my team was a Lucario. Like, why not? It's steel fighting, and also it looks like a badass wolf. You know, it's kind of a good choice. I did call this Lucario. I called him Aura, like the actual Aura, as an Aura Sphere, because you know me being me back then, not good with the naming. Called him Aura Sphere just because you know it was a good idea at the time. And of course, Aura Sphere was a move that I hadn't used a lot, and as you can tell, I jumped to another day because I was drawing that in the dead of night, and I was like, I'm tired, and I have work the next day. Let's sleep. Yeah, honestly, good call on my part. But you will see me occasionally in the later part of this video get up and go to my window. That's because in the moment I have some vegetables growing and planters outside, and some sparrows kept flying down to peck at parts of them. They have almost destroyed one of my plants, and I'm actually really unhappy about that. The tricky thing was with Lucario, like I didn't have all the colors from, but anyway, what did I do with him? I remember using him mainly in the Elite Four and against the champion, specifically the champion's Garchomp, because Cynthia does not mess around. I will tell you that now. She will decimate you if you do not prepare. The funny thing is, you'll notice it, but I don't notice it till later. Yeah, there I go again. You know, Blaze Sparrow's back. I gotta tell him off. And you'll notice it, but I won't notice it until just overhead. I missed part of color, and I came back and I was like, oh, I missed that. But yeah, Aura was actually a Pokemon that was kind of fun to use. There I go again, and I actually kicked the camera on my way past because there was two of them that time, and so Aura was fun to use, but it wasn't till later that I used him the most. On to the final Pokemon in my champion team. Jeez, like I'm counting how many times I'm going up to scare off those sparrows, but anyway, the final Pokemon I used in my champion team, there I go again, was a Staraptor, who I believe I just called him Star. Because, Starly, Staravia, Staraptor, I just called him Star. And, of course, in this picture, I think I tried to draw him using, like, some variation of Gust or Razor Wind. I cannot remember, but he was a really useful Pokemon because there were some times where it's like, Flying type is necessary for this. I think I did use him against an Abomasnow one time. Like, he tanked an Ice type move, almost fainted, but then got his Flying type move off, which did enough to make the other Pokemon faint, because one of the others had already done a fair bit of damage to it. And I believe he was one of the first Pokemon I caught, so him and so Star and Alpha were caught around the same time. I can't remember which one I caught first. I think I might have caught Star first. But yeah, it was really like after catching both of them and seeing what they evolved into, I was like, yeah, no, I'm not getting rid of these guys. These guys are staying on the team. And they are the two earliest game Pokemon that actually remained on my team the entire time. And I actually think, like, I'm thinking about the other generations. They are like some of the only route, whatever you want to call it. I say either or at random points. I change it. They're some of the only early ones that make it onto my champion team, which is really surprising. But anyway, I'm gonna stop talking because I'm almost out of time for this video and this narration. So thank you everybody so much for watching. I hope you like my Sinnoh Champion Team.